Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Melody McAllister. I'm coming live from right outside of Anchorage, Alaska, and I have a special treat for you today. Our guest for our book chat is Miss Kim Bearden. She is an educator. This is her 34th year in education. She is an author, and we're going to talk about her amazing books momentarily. She's a speaker, and the first time I ever heard her speak was in 2015. I want to give a shout out to all my Garland ISD peeps because for everyone that we've talked to, that was so incredible for all of us. So we were all crying together. You are a consultant, and Ms. Bearden is also the co-founder of RCA, or the Ron Clark Academy. And I hope that if you're not following her already, please follow her at Kim Bearden on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And Kim, where are you coming from? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So it's so nice to be with you. So I am in the Ron Clark Academy right now. Our students are still learning virtually, but our educators here, we have the option of coming in and teaching in our classrooms if we like. I'm actually borrowing one of my coworkers' classrooms because there's something going on in mine right now. But I am a teacher in addition to being the co-founder, executive director of the Ron Clark Academy. I teach language arts every single day. And yes, I've been doing this for quite some time, but our school, it's a little bit unique if you've never heard of who we are, because in addition to being a school for students in 4th through 8th grade, we are also an educator training facility. So educators, when it's not COVID times, from all over the world come to our school, sometimes as many as 500 or 600 a week, about 15,000 a year, to sit in our classrooms, watch us teach, and take some of our methods and ideas back to their classrooms. So during this time, we've had to transition and be doing some virtual PD, but we are a place where educators come to collaborate, to learn, and grow from each other.
And I absolutely can tell you that the experience and the professional development at RCA is amazing. It's life-changing. I was able to go in 2015, and that's where I purchased your first book and met you for the first time, Crash Course. And I know that you can't remember this because, like you said, 500, 600 people a week. But I was terrified of getting slide certified because I hadn't been on a slide in a long time. And you really calmed me. You were standing right as we were in line. You really calmed me down. I appreciate that because I am slide certified. So thank you.
Yeah, what slide certified means. In the center of our school, there's a huge electric blue slide. And actually now, since you've been, Melody, you have to come back because there's also another even bigger slide called the Monster. But the slide, it's a symbol for us. It's a symbol that in life, sometimes everybody just does the same thing. And we say you should think big. You should look at things differently. Sometimes instead of taking the stairs, why not slide and look at the world in a different way?
And the great thing is they have people at the bottom that will pick you up, believe me. And I was one of those people. So it's all good.
People up off the floor because it's quite a ride. It really is.
It's
a baby slide. This is a huge 2-story slide that winds around and around. It's quite fun.
And if I ever get a chance, I will definitely go back. And Dave Burgess, thank you so much for joining it. And it was your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday. I have it in my notes and I forgot to say it. So thank you for reminding me. Happy birthday.
Hey, Dave. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. And everybody who's watching, feel free to drop your comments and questions and we will get to them. And so the first thing I would love to talk about with you, I'm so excited, is your first book, Crash Course. So I am blessed to be in a huge writing community with other educators and authors. And so tell me, like what was the journey like to write this? Were you, what made you decide to write this story?
Well, I am an English teacher, and so I'm a writer too. I'm somebody who just likes to put my thoughts on paper. And so it really actually started as a different book that ended up being fight songs. So that'll be an interesting loop to come back to in a minute. But it actually was originally a story about my life and about the lessons I learned, not only from my students, but from other obstacles and challenges that I had faced. And so at the time I wrote, it was about 2014 when I was writing this book. And Simon Schuster published it. But when I was given my editor, she said, I don't know who you are. She said, but she said, I know that you're known for being an educator. And so I really want this book to focus on your work in the classroom and your experiences with students. And so Crash Course became a book about all the things that kids have taught me over the years, because you all who are educators or parents or just anyone who works with kids, you know that there's so many things we can learn from them about resilience, about overcoming obstacles, about joy, about humor, about really forgiveness even, because kids are very, very quick to forgive. And so I told the whole book through stories, because I think that stories are what unite all of us. But the book was really just a celebration of experience that I had with children. And then in each of those stories, what I learned to be a better human being along the way.
And I absolutely love your stories. And I think that's why it's so easy for me to like read your books and not put them down, because it's like one amazing story after another. And you are no stranger to hardship. Like you're smiling and you're full of joy. But you talk about, you get very vulnerable in each of your books actually
Mhm.
about hardships that you've had to go through, and how how you are resilient also. And I think it's beautiful. And these are really your students. I got to meet one of them when I was at RCA. So these beautiful children on your cover are actually students of yours. So that
And
is
some of
so
them
cool.
they're in college right now. All of them are in college right now. They're that old, which is just hard for me to believe that too, because they were babies when we took that picture. But yeah, they're all thriving and doing beautifully well. Yeah, they are. Well, yeah, we all
And
have a story, Melody. Everybody has a story, and I've been given many blessings and things that have happened wonderful in my life. But I think that when we go through hard times and we're allowed to share that, then it helps people to understand that sometimes we, especially in this world of social media, and I embrace and use social media too, but we get this illusion of perfectionism that everything has to be a certain way, that everybody else has it all together, when in fact maybe those people are really struggling too. And so I think it's important to share. In all of my books, I've shared things I did really well, but also things I didn't do well. And then what was the lesson in that made me a better human being?
right. And I love that. And my takeaway from Crash Course was just how you were able to see the beauty all around you. In your students, in the dilapidated building that you and Ron chose to be RCA, and just and learning through your students' learning. Like you were really able to put yourself through the eyes of your students, and that's how you visualized the community and the school that you guys have built together. And because I have been at RCA, I know that it really is a community of educators. You don't really have that hierarchy of a supervisor. You have this mission that you are in together, and it's just so beautiful and really different than what we generally see in schools today. So it brings. You're reading this book. If you go into the Ron Clark Academy, you're going to be filled with a lot of hope. There's greatness out there, and then teachers walk away reading and going to your school and just feeling like there's hope for change. So um, that yes, I know. We don't have. I know. I have so much to say. I apologize. I'm like getting ahead of myself.
Well, when you
But
put
yeah,
the hierarchy, I will say that, so Ron Clark and I, we co-founded the school together, but we're also the administrators. And we also have a dean of students, Junior Bernadette, and we have a director of development. So we have other administrators with us. But I think that when you're saying that, the point is that Ron and I we teach every day. So our staff likes that because they understand that some of the same issues and challenges and just being exhausted. And right now we're teaching virtually, and that's a whole new game for those of us who are doing that. And so just we understand the struggle because we're in the trenches trying to do the work right there with them.
Oh yeah, I remember I was in Ron's class and he was teaching math, and these were fifth graders, I do believe. But he had them turn around and ask us a question, and I was like, "Please God, do not let them come up to me because I have no idea what the answer is." And this was just like fifth grade math, and so it was pretty amazing. It was incredible. And then I got to watch you teach also, I think. But yes, it's just truly amazing. Your next book I want to talk about is let me get Talk to Me. And it's Find the Right Words to Inspire, Encourage, and Get Things Done, 6 Principles of Effective Communication. And so going from your first book to this book, how was it a little bit different in writing? What was your experience by the time that because they're not very many years apart. They're just, what, 4?
Yeah. I guess it was 4 years from one book to the next. So this book I published with Dave Burgess Consulting. So Dave is on here, and it was a really beautiful experience because first of all, I had already written one book. And for those of you who are authors out there or aspiring authors, many of you would probably agree that one of the hardest things about writing a book is that how do you organize and structure that book? And it's interesting, even as writers, a lot of times we'll put words to page that mean so much to us. I mean, it's a story that we're like, this is everything to me. But it may not resonate with anybody else but you, So there's a lot of lessons you learn when you're writing. You're like, okay, this is my story, but that's on the cutting room floor. That doesn't even go. But I love working with Dave and his team and Shelley and all of them because I had a lot of creative freedom to really make this book be what I envisioned it to be. But in my role as an administrator and in my role as a teacher and as a mom, which is a whole thing we can get to, I'm a mom, I have 4 kids, and all of those experiences I've had, I realized, and we all know this, that communication is the key to everything and how we build relationships. And we all know during this COVID times that that relationships are, arguably the most important thing in this world to us. And so, but I realized a lot of times we argue, or we have discussions that turn into arguments, and we do it ineffectively because we just don't know how to choose the right words at the right time. And so the book is 6 principles that I have actually used throughout my whole professional life, and I've refined them. I didn't have names for those principles. I just knew that they were things internally that I wanted to use to guide the kind of person I wanted to be. And so many people said, you know what, you should write a book, because whenever there was a meeting that might be difficult or a struggle, a lot of times people would want me to be in the room, and they're like, you got to explain how you do this. And I'm like, well, I have to put some thought to it. So I put thought to it. This is easy. I can teach this to anybody. And so I was able to kind of narrow it into these 6 principles to teach them to other people. That might have been a longer answer than you wanted, but
no, it's great. I love it. No, and Dave actually just dropped the link, and I just flashed it for a second because I want everyone to know it's in the comments, but I don't want it to cover your beautiful face. No,
that's okay.
You say it's simple, but it's not necessary. It might be to you because you have honed this and you are very good. In fact, when I think about talk to me, the quote that has come up since Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away this last week, one of those is fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And that is exactly what I feel about Talk to Me. In fact, so I read this and I told you a little bit about my life, what was happening, the crazy stuff. And then before we moved to Alaska from the Dallas area, and I had packed away like over 360 pounds of books that I could not part with. I parted with hundreds of pounds of books, but this was actually a book I didn't put in a box. I put it in my suitcase because I didn't want to lose this book. And I thought, I'm going to need this book because I do struggle. I get on my high horse. I have been known to get a little bit too much on my high horse and alienate people. So this really meant a lot to me. And something that really stuck out to me was to focus on just being genuine, like be who you are. You don't have to take on airs or be somebody that you're not. Like actually who you are is the most powerful person that you can be in the moment that you are. And so that was what really resonated with me, besides a lot of other things. I drew all over this book because I love to write. And something else that you wrote, and when you were talking about reconciliation, because that's a part of, effective communication. A lot of times we're so bent on just cutting people out because we can't find where we can communicate effectively. And you said, this really resonates with me because I'm all about forgiveness and I'm sorry. I wrote the I'm sorry story, but it says, you may think that I'm sorry is a sign of weakness, but offering an apology and admitting fault takes courage. It takes strength of character. And so when I was going through all of my writings about this book, I just thought, dang, this is why that I love you and I love your words, because it's so powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, the book, it really does try to, the whole idea is that in life, we know a lot of people that say all the right things, but you don't trust them as far as you can throw them, right? It's because instinctively, intuitively, we know that they really have the wrong motives. And motivation is one of the 6 principles. When we come to the table, we try to sit down with someone, try to have a dialogue, a lot of times we have negative motivators, like maybe it's jealousy, defensiveness, anger, frustration, manipulation. And if you come to the table with that being your motivation, it's very likely that the conversation is not going to be as helpful as it should be. And quite often it could even end in a disagreement. But if you can try to focus on motivations like insight, truth, wisdom, solutions, even if you are feeling up in your feelings, if you can just I've gone into meetings where I even had those 4 words written down. Those are my favorite 4 motivators. I want insight. I want to seek the truth here. So if I'm doing that, I'm going to listen more than I speak. And then I want wisdom, because once I have this truth, what am I going to do with it? Right. And then I want to seek solutions. If I do that, I'm going to go to the table with completely different body language, facial expressions, even timing of my words in such a way that I will listen, and we can come together and really leave the table feeling like, even if we agree to disagree, and even if we're still on 2 different sides, we've had a meaningful dialogue where people are being heard.
And that is so important. It's important for us to learn, because as our roles, because we are leaders in our area, but also for my children that I'm teaching right now, but for our students to see that in our lives. And I know that faith is a huge part of who you are, and you are able to share that without making other people feel defensive, whether they believe the same or whether they don't have a faith that they adhere to. And so everything that you just said, especially the wisdom part, like if I do anything right, it's when I ask God for wisdom and in that moment that I need it. But it's what you just said, taking the time to breathe and to really evaluate a situation in a broader term. And a lot of times we're so up in our emotions, like you said, that it's so unbelievably difficult to do that. But as leaders, we should definitely master this. And I just want to give a shout out, like you don't have to be an educator to get, like this is not just for educators.
A lot of businesses actually use that book. Yeah, a lot of business leaders use it with their organizations because there is actually, it's set up with study questions and things like that and some scenarios and things. So after you've read and mastered the principles, there's some practice and application part there that a lot of organizations find helpful.
And yeah, I want to give a shout out to Rochelle and Dave. Thank you guys for your comments and joining us. So glad. And Rochelle says she loves this book too, Kim.
Thank you.
And anybody else who is watching, feel free. And I probably should check too to see if I have any comments on my personal Facebook. But y'all, if it's in a public, we can see your comments. So if you wonder why your comments aren't showing, it's just the StreamYard difference. But I'm going to look for that at the next part. But yes, it is. I love this. And what do you do? Do you train businesses? Because you are a consultant. Do you actually have opportunity?
Yeah, I do a lot of speaking when it's not COVID times. I do, especially during the summer, because I still am a full-time teacher, but I do travel across the country. I speak to schools and districts. Like when I got to speak for your friends in Garland, that was a wonderful experience. But I also do speak for corporations and businesses and on topics such as effective communication, how to build a meaningful climate and culture in your organization, just all different kinds of topics.
Yeah, and you mentioned the COVID, and I know that it's changed a lot of how people, especially those who travel and speak, it's changed a lot of that. And that kind of takes me to your third book, Fight Song, because this actually came out right after COVID, and you even mention it at the very beginning.
Yeah, I had written the whole manuscript, and then I was able to say, can I at least just put a little author's note in there and say, hey, I wrote this book and didn't know it was going to be released in the middle of a global pandemic. Yes. Yeah. When people read it, they know that was not, it was not taking place, even though the book came out during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so crazy, but everything that you wrote still, whether it's pandemic or not, it still it can resonate with anybody. So, okay, this is your third book. I have a feeling it's not your final book. Okay.
It's not my final book, but so far it's actually my favorite book. It's my favorite book. Probably because it's the most personal. The crash course was really about my life as a teacher and the things that my students primarily had taught me. Really talked to me was a lot of my perspectives as a teacher, but also as a school leader. And so this is really me just as a human being. And so Fight Song is really about, when you're overworked and overwhelmed and underappreciated and undervalued and you don't know what to do and you don't want to know how to get up off that floor. And a lot of people are feeling that way right now. How do you do that? And so I really exposed myself. I talk a lot about the struggles I went through. I went through a very painful, really, really difficult divorce and betrayal and financial ruin, and found myself on the floor of my closet, like, what do I do? And I had a little girl. She's a grown woman now. She's 30, but at the time, how could I pick up the pieces of my life and get it together? And I did. And I'm so grateful. Now, my life is not perfect now because no one's is, but just the principles that I learned through that battle and through that internal struggle have made me a stronger person, but they've also helped me to empower other people. And so, now I have 3 sons whom I adopted from Soweto, South Africa, who are also my heart and joy. And my daughter's now 30. And you don't have to have a man to find happiness, but I remarried the most beautiful, wonderful man for me. So I tell a lot of the details of things that were happening. But just enough to propel the story. It's not depressing, though. You may say, well, that just sounds like really depressing. There's my family in Cape Town, South Africa.
Yes. Am I doing it right? I'm off the screen. There you go.
It sounds like, when I just told you that, you're like, well, that sounds like a real downer. No, the book is totally designed to be uplifting and to empower people, to make them feel like I can do this. But how do I even begin? And so, I talk through, once again, I call them steps in this book, but they're really life principles that can really help you even when you feel like everything's crashing down around you.
I love that. And it just came out in Audible, correct?
Yes. And there's a cool story to that. So one of my favorite beloved students, he is an entrepreneur, a brilliant kid, was a Gates Millennium Scholar, went to UNC Chapel Hill. And so he has a audio studio that is mobile. He started this whole business where instead of going to a recording studio like you often do, he came to my house with the whole studio and could do it in my house, which is really great during a pandemic. And so he actually recorded all the audio, so we got to do it together. And so that was a joyful thing for me to do it with one of my former students. So, but
That's really incredible.
Book. And the foreword of the book is actually written by my daughter, which means a lot to me because the book is written in a way that I certainly don't want to exploit, the things that she experienced as a child. And so I even went to her and I said, I'm ready to write this book. Do you think I should? And she said, it's your responsibility to write this book, Mama. You have to write it. And so she wrote the foreword for it, and which brings me to tears. And she
Yes.
actually reads it on the audio. So that was the highlight of it for me.
I love it. You can't tell, and I praise God for that because I do have tears collecting in my eyes. I was so moved by the foreword, and your relationship with your daughter, Madison, is absolutely incredible and beautiful, especially going through everything that y'all went through. In fact, and I have it right here. I never do very good at showing, but there's the picture of you and her together. And she does seem very incredible. I see her through the pictures that you share on social media, and I am just blown away by the connection that you both have. And I hope for my daughters that we have that connection. It gives me a lot of hope. But I have to tell you, even reading the prologue, I was like, and then chapter 1. So when I started reading it, I read the foreword, I read the prologue, and then I read chapter 1, and I had to put it down for a little bit because it just brought up a lot of emotions. And then I had to work through those. But I mean, it was good because sometimes you don't realize, and it's identify. I think the first chapter is identify, right?
It's really, you have to identify your truth. I mean, sometimes we live in a false truth, that we think things are actually, we only identify the negative things that are going on around us or the negative things about ourselves, so
yes.
Especially I think maybe as women, I don't know, maybe because I am a woman, I think it happens more with women, but I think that so many of us, we will embrace qualities in other people and say, she is so wonderful because she's kind, she's funny. I just love being around her. She's loving, she's spectacular. What an incredible human being. But then when we look at ourselves, we expect ourselves to be judged by a whole different set of traits. I should be a size 2. My house should be immaculate all the time. Oh my goodness, we put all these things on us that really in the scheme of things, we should be healthy, but that's not what it's about. And so it's like we grant grace to our friends and see the beauty within them, but we don't grant that same grace to ourselves. And so that's a really important thing. And also to identify, maybe be honest with ourselves about what is our reality, and so that we can start to move and get out of it. If it's a bad one, if it's a place where we're stuck, or we are in an unhealthy spot, how do we move forward?
Yeah. I mean, it's so much. And I think that's what caught me up. And because I had to get truthful with myself, that I was struggling a lot because of the comparison, and I was just failing miserably in my mind. And it was just, that's what I had to start working through. And I don't know. And I love this picture. I'm just going to show it of you and Madison when they're, that's adorable.
That's when she was a little bitty one. Yes.
And also, that takes me back because then I started to work through some of the things that I had developed because of my own childhood. And it was just something good to work through. This summer has been since I've been by myself most of the time, it's been a lot of reflection.
Right.
Not all easy.
Think, haven't we? Yes.
Yes. And so this really is a great book. And it's not just for educators, y'all. This is for anybody. Like you said, anybody who's struggling, who wants to come back. Yes. And I feel like, go ahead. And Dave put all of this. Thank you for dropping all of this in the comments. Did I cut you off? I feel like I cut you off.
No, I was listening to you. You didn't cut me off.
Yeah. And so you actually had, and I did get to join one session. You actually had a Zoom a book talk with hundreds of educators this summer. How did that go?
So it was just an idea I had because this summer, a lot of us were really struggling and still are, right? But, there's just so many people just overwhelmed and trying to just navigate even getting out of bed. And so I wanted to do something for people. And it was when the book was released, and, releasing a book right when I released it, it was not an ideal time to release a book. And it almost felt, it was difficult because, in the past you're like, here's the book, here, let's promote the book. And this time I almost felt like I shouldn't be promoting a book right now. But at the other hand, though, this book actually, in one way, it was terrible timing, but another way, it was perfect timing, because when people are feeling so broken, the book was to uplift and help people through difficult times, even though I had no idea it would be a pandemic. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to offer something to people. And so I just had a free, book chat. And I said, whoever wants to come, you just had to go and register. And then I would send you a Zoom link each week. And so we just got together. I had women from all over and men from all over. And it was just this huge, massive group of people. And we just kind of talked about the content in the book and shared. And I thought it was really beautiful. And so it was just a really neat thing to have a community of people. And I knew a few people in the room, but a lot of them I did not, to be able to come together and kind of share from our hearts. So it was a beautiful experience.
That is, and I admire how you make yourself available. And since Dave is watching, I feel the same way about him. You guys, for a lot of us educators, you're huge. Like, you're kind of like, we don't mean to, but we elevate you. You are human beings just like us, but you have a very large audience. And so we do get a little bit nervous, but you made yourself available to people when we needed leaders to help us through it. And I think it's absolutely beautiful what you did. And I appreciate it because I got to join one session. My schedule allowed me to do one. And before we go, I have to tell you that with this story, your story is it okay that I talk about the South Africa story? Like,
yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't want to spoil this for anybody, but just incredible. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I would just say that I have 3 sons. Our school, one of the things that we typically do is we do travel with some of our students. We have students who come to us from all different kinds of backgrounds, but we want them to be exposed to the world. And so it takes a lot of work and a lot of donors and a lot of fundraising. But we take our students who are 8th graders each year to Soweto, South Africa. And if you don't know the history of Soweto, South Africa, I encourage you to learn more about it, because it's a very rich history, but there's also a lot of pain that has happened there due to apartheid and the remnants that still exist there. And so we work in schools, we work in orphanages, and so I met 3 beautiful little boys. I met them the first time when they were 8 years old, but you can read the book to learn all the details, because it would take me 30 minutes to tell you everything, but I do give a lot of the highlights of their story in the book. But they are now my 3 sons, and beautiful journey, because they are extraordinary young men, but they were denied an education there, even though they went to school. There's lack of resources, lack of opportunities. And so when they arrived here, they could not multiply, they could not add. They were 12 years old, and one of my sons could not read. Now all 3 of my sons are in college and they're thriving. And so that's one thing for educators out there. Don't ever assume just because a child arrives to you in a certain way that child doesn't have the potential. There's the greatest potential ever. And the way that the educators at my school also, because my boys came to school here at the RCA, poured into my sons, it was magnificent. But there is a lot more to the story, in that once they arrived here, and even after I'd adopted them, I had to go through a tremendous amount of work to get their U.S. citizenship, and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots to be able to do that, and had to take a journey back to South Africa. And so I talk about that in the book as well. But they do have their U.S. citizenship now, and they're so excited about that. And they just got their voter registration cards. And so that's like a big thing too. And they're so proud of that. So it's been a really beautiful, beautiful journey. And I think I have benefited far more than they, because of just the joy they have brought all of us.
I love this story. And you said to surround, like, you had to go back to South Africa. You had to do what you had to do for your boys. Like, you're a mom on a mission, and other people might have thought you were crazy, but even your husband knew, like, hey, it's in your brain, you're going. And you did. And I love that you said that God showed up, like that, just boom, like he shows up exactly when you need him. And it was such a great story. Like I said, every single one of your books, you tell stories. It's why I'm able to read them, because a lot of education books are books that you read to grow in your professional development. They're a little bit hard to get through sometimes, but yours don't read like that. There's just one story after another. I don't want to give too much of away, but you faced your whole family, you faced an incredible giant, but the mother bear in you came out. You were going to do everything you could for your sons. And I got to meet your sons. I think it was their last year at RCA. And I remember sitting in Spanish class with Pacamani, and I was just like, these kids are brilliant and they're so nice. Like, because you think typical middle school, not always, you think attitude sometimes, but not at all that way. So that just blew me away, and I loved it. And just to kind of sum your book up, surround yourself with people who believe in you, who, even when you have a crazy idea, like writing a book or doing something that's a great risk, although, every risk has a chance of failure, but those people who lift you up and say, go for it, those are the people who you want to surround yourself with. And I loved how you ended kind of on that. And just to find that song, everybody has a unique story, and it is part of your mission and who you are as a person. It was very uplifting. So please, these book chats are to kind of help people to say, hey, have you heard about this book? Because it's really good. You should pick it up. And but before we go, can you tell us, how can we follow you?
Oh, so I am at Kim Bearden everywhere. So on Instagram and on Facebook and on Twitter. I haven't really dived into the whole TikTok world yet. I go on there and look, but I haven't posted anything there. But I tend to put most of my things on Instagram. That tends to be my social media of choice. And then, of course, the Ron Clark Academy. If you follow at Ron Clark Academy on those same media outlets as well. Can I tell everybody too about the community? So although we are virtual right now, Ron Clark Academy, we have been doing everything we can to provide professional development for educators and to uplift and support them during this difficult time. And so we've been offering a lot of free professional development for educators. And our next one is on October the 1st. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see it there. Or if you go to Ron Clark Academies, it's going to be on October 1st. We stream it live on Facebook. And then we have it there afterward, the recording, so you can watch forever. But it's just going to be lots of tips and tricks, that was hard to say, and things that you can use in your classroom and things to build rapport with your students. And we offer these quite often throughout this course of the year. After the winter break, our plan is to resume in-person Ron Clark Academy virtual visits, so people can actually come here and come to our professional development. So we just pray that everything with COVID dies down and we're able to do that and welcome educators back here for the training. And then the last thing is that we have something called Club RCA. You can learn about that on our website at ronclarkacademy.com. But that's a club that it's a subscription club, but people who join that, every single week, we have an hour Zoom of professional development, but you're in the Zoom room with us and we bond and we tell stories, but we also teach lots of meaningful content to help teachers during this challenging time to be able to have success.
That's amazing. And you don't have to be slide certified to be in that club, right?
Nope, you do not. As a matter of fact, for some, it's been their very first exposure to those of us at the Ron Clark Academy. So if you go to ronclarkacademy.com, you can find all that information about all the different options. And as I said, many are free, some are paid because we are a nonprofit. And one thing that makes us unique in this world of educator training is that we are a nonprofit where 100% of proceeds for anything we do go back to support the students at our school for student scholarships. And so that's how we actually fund our organization and run our school.
That is amazing. I want to, and Dave put this information. Dave, you're so amazing. We love you. You know,
come everywhere with me, Dave. You've just been great. You've been my publicist today. I love it.
And I love that. And then you can also, like Kim just said, go to ronclarkacademy.com for these wonderful opportunities. Thank you for doing this. Your staff is incredible. So these are great opportunities. And I hope that if you're watching, whether it's live or after this, that you will go to ronclarkacademy.com and check all of this out. I know that I will. So thank you so much. It has been such an incredible experience for me personally to be able to sit down with you and talk. So I appreciate that, out of your busy schedule, because you're working hard just like everybody else.
We all are, yeah.
And so for you to take 30 minutes and talk with me about your books has been an incredible experience. I thank you so much for doing this today.
Oh, Melody, you are a bright ray of light. So thank you. It's been a joy. And honestly, this has been a great bunch of fun for me. And thank you, because it means so. It's really great to be talking about your books with somebody who's actually really read the books and absorbed everything you're saying. And that means a lot to me as an author. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, and I want to tell you people that I prayed that I wouldn't cry, because I know that I would, every time I touch one of your books, like the emotions that I feel, the connection to it, it really, like, either I get goosebumps or I get a little choked up. So praise God, I didn't lose it today. But yes, your work has really impacted me, whether I got to see you live or read your books. I thank you so much for sharing. I'm just one of thousands, maybe millions of people who have been impacted by your life and your willingness to be vulnerable and share. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody who joined in. Quite a few people joined in. They didn't say anything, but they were here with us the whole time. Thank you to Dave and Rochelle for dropping some comments. We appreciate that you took time to listen to us today in your busy schedules. And I will see you all next week. Thank you, Kim.